You're watching NRATV with Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Mike Show, live from Los Angeles. I'm Bill Whittle. Hot Mike can't be here today. He's getting a little work done. Nothing major, just a little tightening up around the eyes. So we expect him to be fully recovered by Monday. And if you tune in on Monday and you see a really buff guy with dark black hair and looks, like an Asian grandmother, that's Hot Mike. Today we're going to be talking about the glamour trap. And that's exactly what it is. Glamour is a trap, and it has long had a very, very profound effect on human nature. It's not only been something that has caused us to admire many people, but it's also caused us to put down what would normally be our sense of reason and so on, because humans are attracted to beautiful things and beautiful people, and they tend to believe them in a way that they don't believe ordinary people. So here's the impetus for our story today. Rolling Stone magazine had a cover, and boy, what a cover! Even by Rolling Stone standards, this was pretty remarkable. It's a picture of Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, and the cover says, "Why can't he be our president?" And there's a smiling picture of Justin in the Rolling Stone and so on. And the entire article is, let's just say it's positive towards Justin Trudeau. Now, I have known for a long time that Justin Trudeau, the new Prime Minister of Canada, was a young, good-looking guy, smart guy, but that most of what he believed was pretty much nonsense. And the reason I knew he was a smart guy was because of a question he answered while at a technical center. Now, stay with me here, folks, because this is a story that's got the kind of ending that really, really makes you realize you're on the right side of this game. So, as I said quite a while ago, Justin Trudeau was asked a question about quantum computing, which is pretty heavy-duty stuff. I know the basics of it. Let's hear what the Prime Minister of Canada had to say that impressed so many people, seen by millions, maybe 100 million people.
Computing, but most of you, normal computers work either there's power going through a wire or not. It's 1 or a 0. They're binary systems. What quantum states allow for is much more complex information to be encoded into a single bit. Regular computer bit is either a 1 or a 0, on or off. A quantum state can be much more complex than that because, as we know, things can be both particle and wave at the same times, and the uncertainty around quantum states allows us to encode more information into a much smaller computer. So that's what's exciting about quantum computing, and that's what we're going.
Be still, my beating heart. A man that handsome, that intelligent, Prime Minister, leader of a country. Oh, no wonder the Liberals were swooning. I was impressed. I have to tell you, as I said, I saw the clip. I thought I was impressed. He seems like a smart guy, but that was nothing compared to what some of these Liberal newspapers have done. As I said, that particular clip's been seen by tens, if not hundreds of million people, talking about how far superior Canada is to the United States in terms of the intellectual weight of its leadership, especially against Donald Trump. So let's look at some of these headlines that came out right after Trudeau's speech. You can see Justin Trudeau explains quantum computing, and the crowd goes wild. Your dreams, Justin Trudeau, man of your dreams, Justin Trudeau casually drops quantum leap theory, and you can see it again and again and again and again and again. Gives a reporter a quick lesson on quantum computing during a visit to Waterloo. Watch Justin Trudeau explain quantum computing. Justin Trudeau explaining quantum computing, etc., 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 etc. Now, here's the only problem with Justin Trudeau's incredible ability to explain quantum computing to the news media. And the problem is, it's all fake news. All fake news. And I was preparing the segment to say, okay, he's a smart guy, but what he believes is garbage. He's not a smart guy. He's actually kind of an idiot. And to this, I owe personal thanks to the essentially irreplaceable Ezra Levant, whose video I saw just researching this piece this afternoon. There's a still from it over at Rebel Media. Ezra Levant points out something that I did not know about that quantum computing story, and it's pretty interesting. First of all, as Ezra points out in his video, he said that Trudeau knew he was heading to a tech center, that he knew he was heading to a tech center and that there was going to be a press conference at the tech center. All right, so far so good. Levant took a look at what Trudeau actually said, compared it to the Wikipedia entry on quantum, and essentially realized that Justin Trudeau had gone to this tech center and memorized one paragraph about quantum computing. And the proof that he memorized it, and this whole thing was essentially a gigantic staged event, was this. Here's what Justin Trudeau said to reporters prior to him explaining quantum computing to reporters.
I was going to ask you to explain quantum computing, but when do you expect Canada's ISIL mission to begin again? And are we not doing anything in the interim while we prepare?
Okay. Very simply, normal computers work by... No, don't interrupt me. When you walk out of here, you will know more. No, some of you will know far less about quantum computing, but most of you...
Okay, we get it. We get it. Prior to that moment, Justin Trudeau is saying on camera, I wish somebody here would ask me about quantum computing. And when he took 2 or 3 questions when nobody would ask him about quantum computing, he got a question about something that Canadian journalists apparently did want to know about. And his response was a response on quantum computing. The whole thing was canned. And there are hundreds of millions of people out there now who think this guy's a genius. And I was one of the guys who thought he was pretty bright because he read a paragraph that he had rehearsed and that he insisted upon being asked. And when he wasn't asked it, he gave that answer anyway. The real Justin Trudeau looks a little more in focus when we look at him at a session of the Canadian Parliament where he was asked a question about how many times he'd met with the chairman of an ethics committee. He's in a bit of ethical trouble in Canada, and the Conservatives in the Canadian government wanted to know if he had met with the ethics commissioner or whatever he was. I'm going to start the clip with the first question in English, but understand that before this question is asked, Trudeau is asked this question 2 or 3 times in French and gives the exact same answer 18 times.
What Canadians expect is that their Prime Minister would give a clear answer to a clear and a simple question. Now, if he has something to hide, then Canadians want to know that as well. So I would suggest, if he wants to send Canadians the message that he has nothing to hide, that he answer the question. How many times has the Prime Minister met with the Ethics Commissioner?
I am very happy to work with and answer the Ethics and Conflict of Interest Commissioner questions. I think it's extremely important that we be working.
It's been asked 4 times already. I don't even know why I'm trying, to be frank, but I'll repeat this simple question. How many times has the Prime Minister met with the Ethics Commissioner?
Right, Honourable Speaker. Happy, as should be any member of this House, to work with the Ethics Commissioner, answer any questions that she may have.
What a charade, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister said he would stand up every Wednesday and answer every question that's being asked of every member on this side of the House, and he fails to do it. He's been asked 5 times today, Mr. Speaker, about the Ethics Commissioner. For the sake of my colleagues, I'll ask it again. How many times? 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 And how many times has he met with the Ethics Commissioner?
They expect clarity, they expect consistently, and when asked the same question, I will give the same answer. That's what Canadians expect. I will work with and answer the questions that the Ethics Commissioner and Conflict of Interest Commissioner may have.
That second gentleman was stating that the question had been asked 5 times already. He was number 6. There were 12 more to go. 12 more times where a member of that Parliament asked Justin Trudeau the same question, and Trudeau gave precisely exactly the same 1-sentence answer. You look at that video and you see a guy who's not only oily but also not very smart. In fact, the guy who's not very smart at all. So that brings us to the entire idea of glamour. And joining us today, we have a guest I think's got some special insight into this kind of thing. Steve Solomon's a former U.S. Army intelligence officer. He came back from being deployed overseas to marry his childhood sweetheart Ellie. They became pastors at a small college in small church in Tennessee, and now he's a conservative commentator with his own radio show. Hey, Steve, good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Bill, I don't know what to think about being on your show today. So we're talking about glamour. So either I'm pretty and I know nothing, or you think I'm an ugly guy with something to say. So I don't know.
Why don't we just say we're both a couple of ordinary looking guys with some basic common sense questions, and we'll start there.
Let's do that.
Steve, glamour is a term that everybody knows, and they usually associate it with Hollywood, but sometimes they'll associate it with politicians like Justin Trudeau or John Kennedy or Bobby Kennedy or one Barack Obama, for example. They say they're glamorous, but the original meaning of glamour was kind of a spell. It was an enchantment. It was a magical effect that someone could cast upon somebody else to make them see what they wanted to see, to make them see what they thought was beautiful. And essentially, it's a giant camouflage of a fundamental lie.
You're absolutely right, Bill. I think something that can apply really easy to our understanding today is glamour shots. Do you remember those? We used to have glamour shots where you get in and you have the background, and
oh yeah,
it makes you look prettier than you really are. And it was to show people something about you that wasn't necessarily true. And this is what we're seeing with Trudeau. It's what we saw with Obama. It's surface appearance that looks beautiful, but the substance just isn't there.
Well, let's talk about the substance. We've seen, as we saw there, and many cases of Justin Trudeau looking like the proverbial deer in the headlights. But let's talk about the young, handsome, brilliant, maybe the smartest man who ever sat in the White House ever. Previous occupant of the White House, Barack Obama. Barack Obama, as people like to point out, was so smart that he was selected as president of the Harvard Law Review. That's a pretty impressive thing for a young man to be president of the Harvard Law Review and still look this good in sunglasses, be able to dance like this on Ellen. It makes progressives swoon, makes them just faint dead away. But here's the problem, Steve, here's the problem, Democrats, here's the problem, rest of the world. The problem is this. Barack Obama was president of the Harvard Law Review, and while he was president of the Harvard Law Review, he was the only president of the Harvard Law Review to never write a law review. And this used to mystify me, Steve. I mean, it really used to just flummox me. And then suddenly, like the sun coming up one day, it dawned on me, of course, Barack Obama wrote law reviews for the Harvard Law Reviews. It's just that those law reviews were so pedestrian and so bland and so completely ordinary that Harvard dared not publish them because of the embarrassment it would cause when people realized that we hired this guy because of his glamour.
They love celebrities. They love the idea of a good-looking man or a good-looking woman who comes in and rides in on a horse. You know, the hair is waving behind and everything's perfect and beautiful. You know the irony about this, Bill? They try to make people like Barack Obama into celebrities because they want them to hang out with Hollywood types and people in the media and movies and things like that. Then you get a real celebrity, Donald Trump, who actually had his own hit TV show, and they can't stand the guy. It's so funny. They only want you if you're in their image. You have to be made in their image. Otherwise, you're no good, and they want to get rid of you.
I like that expression very much, that they have to be made in their image. I have suspected for quite a while, well, I think there's no question that the left is more susceptible to this kind of charisma, a charismatic leader, that they're more emotionally susceptible to them than conservatives are. Ronald Reagan is kind of the conservative, hero, but I don't know of anybody who had that kind of a love affair with Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan always struck me as being a guy whose primary appeal was how ordinary he tried to be anyway. What is it, do you think, about the progressive modern left mindset that makes them so susceptible to this idea of kind of a God who walks the earth? You know, can you believe it? Newsweek said he's kind of a God. You know, this kind of thing describing Barack Obama. What is it with these people that makes them so susceptible to this?
I think that's a great question. If you look at technology, if you look at the way that we have smartphones today and Snapchats and all of these Instagram photos, you know, the girls do the duck face. They look at the camera, they do the perfect picture, the perfect shot. Everything's got to be perfectly viewed and acceptable on a beauty level. I think we've just raised a generation that is so used to seeing perfection and coolness and everything's just styled just perfectly that if they don't get that, it's unacceptable. It's one reason we hate, for instance, the older generation. If you'll notice, the older generation is always kicked out and pushed to the side in favor of younger generations because Older people aren't cool anymore. They don't look beautiful anymore. Now their beauty, as the scriptures say, is their gray hair. You know, that's their strength. And that's just not appealing to our generation anymore. That's why we get Justin Trudeau's. That's why we get Barack Obama's. Donald Trump obviously is on the other end of that spectrum. No offense to him, but he's nowhere near as the Barack Obamas and Trudeau's of the world. But he's got substance, and he's got a plan. And I think that's just not appealing anymore.
Yeah, and sad to say that the faster the world changes, and it changes accelerating, the less esteem we hold for people with gray hair, because it seems that their knowledge is so out of date. But I've certainly felt, and I know you do too, that the more of this I watch, the more I realize that what our the generation that came before us has is not just knowledge, it's wisdom, and it's a moral base that seems to degrade pretty much every year. Steve, if you can hang out with us, we're going to take a 2-minute break. When we come back, we'll be talking about some of the consequences of this glamour trap. This is the Hot Mic Show right here on NRATV. I'm Bill Whittle. We'll be right back.